as we're getting started, inside the, just so everybody knows, inside of the chat window, so this is not the question window, but inside of the chat window of the GoToWebinar, I just posted the URL to the Facebook community page. So if you have no idea what that is, right now we have 366 members that are in the Evidence Management Community Forum. And this thing was also created at the exact same time that these webinars came about. And ultimately, we wanted to use the webinars to get people talking and sharing what's out there. Like this idea of doing a virtual evidence room tour, as far as I know, has never existed. And this is the 5th one we've done now. And so in addition to showing off via webinar, we wanted to put people in contact with each other via the Facebook community page. And so right now, if you're a member of that Facebook community page, and it's awesome because people are starting to really post in it. People are going in there and posting, hey, I'm in this RMS system. Is anybody else in it? And just simply meeting people that are in the same circumstances with which they're in. We're getting questions on how do you do this? How do you handle that? I'm thinking about doing this. And I mean, the dialogue is just starting to really take off. So I want to throw that out to everybody. As a matter of fact, here, actually, I don't want to take it off my screen, but again, inside the chat window is the link to the Facebook community page. If you go into there, I see people are coming in now and already asking to be approved. So I'm already approving people to be in the community group, and welcome. We welcome you to this webinar. We welcome you to the community group. We hope that this comes across as we're on a mission to simply elevate the world of evidence and property. We want to bring people together to communicate. And so to that degree, let me introduce James Nally. James, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Ben. How are you today, sir?
I'm fantastic. I am so very appreciative of you being here. You're the first webinar that I've done that is a virtual evidence room tour that is not of a client of ours. And this thing is not about tracker software. I'm not even going to talk about tracker software today. This is about showing off different scenarios. And so I appreciate you being the first person that's willing to come on and do an evidence room tour. And so thank you for being here today with us.
No, I'm absolutely happy that you reached out to us. You know, our unit is pretty modern. I think we have a few things that are pretty unique. We're such a large agency. By the way, hello everyone. My name is James Nally from Orange County Sheriff's Department, coming to you from Santa Ana, California. Beautiful weather today, a balmy 72 degrees outside. So I wouldn't know because I'm locked in the basement, the dungeon of our building, like many of you. So I could get started, but before I get started, I just want to say that it's not just me in this unit. You know, I've been helping out with Sean and EMI, and I love to get on social media and help other people and post stuff, but I couldn't be here. I couldn't do my job without all the rest of my folks. And we have a total of 14 people, including our supervisor, our sergeant, and he's definitely a working supervisor as well. And you'll hear him running around in the background or stamping off some dispos or something. So, you know, we are working here. It's live, so you might hear phones and stuff in the background. But while we're doing that, we're also trying to give you a little tour and a little bit about what we do here at the Orange County Sheriff's Department.
Excellent. Well, let's start out. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us how long you've been there, generally what you do. Give us some statistics about. Actually, you know, one thing I do want to throw out real quick. Make sure, guys, I'm going to ask a lot of questions of James. I'm going to try to direct this conversation down the road, but a lot of the purpose of this is to get feedback from the people that are on here. We're already up to 110 people watching this webinar from literally all over the country. And so if you have questions, my job is to moderate and get those questions back to James. And I know James well enough that I think he'd rather answer a lot of questions than to just sit here and talk about
Absolutely.
So yeah, so get the ball rolling, James. Tell us your name, your background. Tell us a little bit about your department there, and just kind of catch us up.
Sure, I got some stuff coming up in presentation to kind of outline some of my experience and stuff. But I like to start with this slide because syphilis, or as I should call him, Sisyphus, the Greek mythology, we really relate to this. If you read the descriptions, he was condemned to an eternity of rolling a boulder up a hill and then watching it roll back down again. And I think that kind of resonates with most property evidence units. So I always think that's a clever thing. I wanted to get started in that. Hey, I was just talking about my coworkers. Let me introduce a couple of my coworkers. This is Zena Price Thompson. She's our dispo team leader, coordinator, superstar dispo person. And Benjamin Laguna is our other one of our other legal property technicians.
Excellent.
He's, our firearms and narcotics and special handling expert. So we love his contributions too, just as I was talking about. Here's a little bit about me. I don't know where we dug this picture up. It's super old. I don't look anything like that anymore. As far as fentanyl goes, subject matter expert on fentanyl, only because it hit our agency pretty hard. So, you know, that's how you get up to speed on stuff, is when it's affecting your department. I also teach an evidence management class, worked with Post for a while, and then CAPE, our California Association of Property Owns, amazing association. They're doing great things right now. And if anyone from California, looks like our state seminar got postponed to October, so check the website for that. And for that matter, if there's anyone else that would really like to attend a very well-produced state seminar, San Diego in October, check out CAPE, CAPE-INC.US, and that's their website, and they have some good stuff on there too. All right, so Orange County Sheriff's Department Evidence Unit. Since we are a relatively large agency, we have multiple locations, and I know that's a trend in law enforcement right now, to get the property room out of your station or your headquarters building and stage it off site somewhere. It seems to become a big trend, but we've always kind of been like that. We have 3 locations. This first building right here, you see, I don't know if you can see my cursor on it. Yeah, that's our building, and that's also, we also share that with the crime lab. So the really nice convenience about that is when you need to make crime lab runs, it's right across the hallway. So I know a lot of people are jealous about that, but that helps us out a lot. We have our vehicle lot down here on the left side. It holds up to about 150 vehicles, boats, RVs, motorcycles, bicycles, etc. So it's a secure facility. And then we have our warehouse over here. That's a 36,000 square foot warehouse. We'll kind of get into that in a little bit. Just some stats to take a look at so you guys understand where we're at. 2019, if you add everything up, looks like we did about 58,000, a little over 58,000 items in 2019. So that kind of sets the boundary for how many items we bring in per month. So as of May 13th, 2020, we're right around 272,679 active pieces of evidence. And again, with 14 staff, that's a pretty huge task to juggle. Where does our evidence come from? Well, it comes from all over the county. We have 12 booking collection stations throughout the county, and each one of those booking and collection stations gets fed through the local area. So in addition to our 3 harbors that we have, we also take in evidence from the Orange County District Attorney's Office, the Coroner's Office, all of our contract cities, all of our jails, our transportation authority, our local airport, and our court system. So it's a pretty complex. We're getting evidence from almost every corner of the county. And that translates into about 4,800 items, 4,900 items per month that we deal with, that we process. So in order to do that, you really have to have a pretty good process of running around the county every day and picking up all the items and bringing it back to one of your 2 warehouse locations. So this is our intake area. So just picture 14 of these locations where we have our lockers, we have our booking stations, and we have our packaging stations. And I know we've kind of beat this like a dead horse, but this is our mobile, our booking kiosk. So the thought behind that is, on some of the more oddball items that you don't see on an everyday basis, like tasers, blood evidence, liquid evidence, we have these videos that play that remind the deputies on how to properly package, book, and seal these types of items. So we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about it. We've been doing it for about 2 years. I would suggest Yeah,
can I throw something out real
absolutely.
quick? Because
Absolutely.
you made an assumption right there that you beat that to death, and I know you've talked a
We
lot
have,
about
yeah,
it.
we have. Uh-huh.
There's a lot of people on here that don't know what that is, but what I do want to throw out to everybody is James, they created these videos and they've got scripts to go along with a lot of what they put together to basically allow people to understand this is how we want you to package this stuff, not based on a piece of paper, but here's a video.
Right, right.
And we're actually trying to get all of that stuff on YouTube and on our community group so that everybody that is here will have access to all of that stuff. So maybe tell us real quick what you do in that process.
Well, I mean, you know, I was tasked with taking a look around the unit and find out where we're kind of lacking or where our time is going. And you know, anyone in the evidence unit will tell you that right of refusal is very time consuming, from identifying an item that is improperly booked, packaged, or sealed to making those notifications. And with our agency, we actually require them to come to our central office and fix the item. And by doing that, we're able to kind of educate them and let them know, you know, what they did wrong and, you know, what some of the procedures are for if you have a problem, how to call us, rather than just throw in an amnesty locker and let them try to make the correction at a later time. So we started looking into this, and one day I came home and my son had put together, my 11-year-old son had put together a pretty complex circuit board. And I asked him, how were you able to figure out how to solder and do all that kind of stuff? He said, YouTube, Dad, YouTube, right? So that got me thinking, well, you know, if a kid can figure out how to work electronics from a YouTube video, then why can't we do that for our deputies as well? It's very time consuming. Hopefully the scripts that I provided to the site will kind of help people. So at least you have a template. You can change some of the information to make it coincide with the way you require packaging. But if that's something you're wanting to do, it doesn't have to be professional. It could be straight from your iPhone. But most people only have one computer they have to put up there, not 12. So need any help or whatever, feel free to reach out. I love talking about that stuff.
And the thing I want to encourage everybody with, because what I love about what you just said right there was you understood, you just basically saw something, your son on YouTube, and you immediately translated it into
Sure.
how can I make this better? Because a lot of people learn by watching video. The idea of reading things, that's me. I cannot sit there and read something, but you give me a video to watch it and I'll figure out how to do it.
Yeah, we push each other in our unit. Like I said, my partners that aren't here today because we're on split shift now, we always push each other. It's more of a competition sometimes, and I think that helps elevate our work performance and come up with new ideas that help the unit overall.
Awesome.
So, okay, so this is one of 12 of our collection locations. Once it comes to the centralized warehouse, our property unit in Santa Ana, it goes on this wall and we separate everything out. It's a sorting area. So the larger items, as you see in the carts on the right, would go out to our warehouse facility because of their size. And we split the carts into two. We have our safekeeping found items on the right and our evidence on the left. I know a lot of people are having influx of bulk property from our transit population. It's really critical to ensure that we put those items in a contained area where they're not going to contaminate our primary evidence, because we've had issues with infestations and other contaminants within those areas. I don't get gross about it all, but yeah, that's definitely a consideration. So next, we have our storage area in the back. It's approximately 17,000 square feet. So this is just one of several rolling carriages that we organize. If you notice here, we have colored tags. Every year, the tag on the property will change color to indicate what year it is. And then also there's a label on the package as well, just in case the tag gets ripped off or separated, we can still identify the item. Just an example of the larger area of our warehouse, and you can see that these are all small items, all the small and secure items, so money, dope, guns, swabs, and our small 6x9 or 9x12 envelopes all stay at our primary secure location. All the larger packages would then be transported by cart out to our warehouse facility. Just examples of some secure storage. We have two vaults. One's 20 by 12 and just contains a bunch of file cabinets with small drawers for envelopes. And then the other one is the larger vault is the 18 by 30, and that has all of our large items in it. Kilo
Hey,
size.
James, can you back up? Can you back up the screen? I had a question come in, and I do want to throw this out. And there are people on my end, they're going to laugh at me when I ask this question, but somebody actually asked this question. Back up one more screen with all the shelves and all the storage.
Yep.
All right, so I'm curious, as I see all of these storage locations, I can see every one of the boxes on the shelves has a storage location ID on it. I'm curious, do you store everything by case number inside those boxes?
Well, it is by case number. It's in chronological order, which I wasn't a fan of in the beginning. I would much rather spend a couple hours going through, the whole box to find the item than, 2.5 minutes to find the item right away. But no, that's again, one of the competitive spirit that we have is finding better ways to do stuff. So originally, these large boxes were just one barcode, and you dig through the whole box to find your item. Now we've just purchased cardboard sleeves and separate the box, and it just reduces the amount of time it takes to find the item you need.
Right.
So I think you could do that with just about anything.
Do you ever shift things from one box to another, or I mean, and do you have to keep chain of custody tabs on that when you shift it? Would you do a chain of custody transaction if you shift an item from one box to another?
Yeah, well, it's all kept digitally through our database management system. It's kept digitally, the audit trail. And yes, we do consolidate every year. We move this year to the other area and consolidate. And the really cool thing about that is, you can sign that off as an inventory, or you can call it an audit because you're consolidating your boxes. And with our software, I don't want to get into this quite yet, but with our peripheral devices, we're able to run the box before we start, scan everything out of the box, and then run the box again to ensure that there's nothing left. So
I just want to throw that out because the question came in while you were there, and I know people love to know about organization methods and how do you go about managing 280 whatever thousand pieces of evidence. So.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do with just making that box height just the right height and only accepting those specific packaging items. So we provide the packaging. If it comes in the wrong package, then that's right of refusal.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Secure storage, that's our vaults. We have our temperature controlled storage with the remote alarmed freezers and refrigerator. We have two 20 by 20 foot freezers, and we have one 20 by 20 foot walk-in refrigerator for the liquid evidence as well. Pretty standard. So our specialty storage area, we are part of the coroner's office, so we hold coroner, and that's why we have specific security for those areas as well, being firearms and a lot of medications come in through the coroner's evidence stream. So we just take a little greater precaution with having fencing and so forth in front of that. Here's an example of our handgun row. The handguns on the left, it just goes on and on forever. There's several of those rows for the handguns. Long guns, again, just row after row of long guns. We're at, I think, a little over 8,000 active cases right now with firearms. All right, so now we're switch gears to our warehouse facility. This example of our warehouse facility, there's actually 8 of these rows, or 4 of these rows that are identical to this. And if you notice, there's boxes at the top. Top is the hardest to get to with the forklift. You got to be pretty seasoned. When you first start over there, they don't let you jump on the forklift and reach the top because there's fire sprinkler lines all over here. And last thing we want to do is rain nasty water all over our good evidence. So, but the red box or the red square on the box, that indicates our long-term homicide evidence. Just makes sense. You're not going to be getting into that very much, if at all. So let's leave it up there where it won't be disturbing. It's easier to get to, or it's harder to get to. Warehouse, just like any other warehouse, we have tons of bikes. We used to have tons of marijuana grow equipment, so ballasts, lighting hoods, filters, and fans, and all different kind of items from grow houses. But since marijuana has become legal, We really don't hit those grow houses anymore, except when the utilities company calls us and says, hey, someone's stealing power for their illegal grow operation. So that's a felony. Growing marijuana in and of itself is not a crime at this point. We're within considerations, but stealing power from the utility company, that's a felony, and we'll respond for that.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Seriously, we legalize marijuana. We give you the right to go out and sell this stuff now, and you got to steal power and mess it all up. Just pay power.
That's been going on for a long time, I guess. But when we switched from that to something called slap houses. And I don't know if I never knew what that term was until recently. There's an example of a marijuana grow on the left side, and you can see how many items it is. The worst part about these types of situations is that they're taken under search warrant. So you got to hang on to them until the case is completely adjudicated and then get court orders to get rid of everything. So it's really a nightmare when it comes to that. Then on the right-hand side, you see that's our drying operation for fresh grow marijuana. We just package it in the paper bags, poke small holes in it to vent it out so it doesn't accumulate mold, and then flip them over once a week for a couple weeks, and then package them up, stack them up in our vault. So it's a pretty big operation. Here's what I was talking about. Okay, so the slap houses, the illegal gambling houses that lend a hand to illegal drug activity, prostitution. We'll hit those like with search warrants, and we'll go out in the field and actually help investigations collect these. So these are big space wasters, we call them. These games are about 8 feet long, and you can put 12 players around that. So we know we'll never give them back because they're contraband, they're illegal at the time. So the judges are still requiring us to hold them for up to 5 years before we can even seek their return. So you see some of the issues that we face, just a whole row dedicated to nothing but flat screen TVs, gambling machines, etc. So we have our mobile evidence response team, which is kind of unusual. I don't think every agency has it. Maybe it's an unwritten rule that evidence officers would roll out with their investigations team and help process evidence and so forth in the field. Now, this is completely separate from the CSI folks that are out there actually collecting forensic evidence. This is specifically to book the items in the field and to take the evidence from the field. So here's an example of a big marijuana grow that we were involved in. We stay on the other side of the chain of custody, meaning that we don't touch the items until they're packaged and sealed. Once they're packaged and sealed, we'll go ahead and book them in, and we'll take custody of them. We use a device that allows us to transfer custody from one person to the other, which makes it really nice because then investigations and our patrol deputies can get back to work, whether they're going back to the office to write the report or they're pursuing leads on the case. At least they can feel confident that the evidence is getting processed and transported back, and they don't have to do it. Okay, so some of the examples of when we would roll out would be like this, a marijuana grow, or Dana Point, we went recently on a illegal smuggling operation. So this boat here in the background had a couple tons of compressed marijuana on it, as you see on the right-hand side. We were out there responsible for collecting it once it was sealed and taking it. Really helps so the officers can get back to processing the suspects and taking them to jail and writing the report and getting their statements and stuff. So examples of times that we would roll out: large-scale homicides, receiving stolen property. If there's a bunch of stolen property that the deputies aren't able to transport in their vehicles, or even if it's one large item like a piece of granite, that was stolen from a granite or tile place, or we've been out on multiple capers where ATMs have been yanked out of gas stations. They just can't throw the ATM in the back of their patrol unit. So we'll come out, we have the right equipment with the dollies and the lift gates and all that. And it's really helped to elevate our unit and get a little respect from some of the patrol people, because we're saving them a great deal of time. So they're very grateful.
Hey, James, did you tell
Yes,
us
sir.
earlier, how many years have you been doing this, or are you going to cover that at some point? I don't remember
I
you
did
saying.
a little bit earlier. So yeah, I'm sorry if I missed that, but I've been with the Sheriff's Department for 27 years. And been
But you've been in evidence for 23,
going on 23 years now. Yeah. So we've seen a lot. We've seen the change from the DOS type programming systems from when I first came, which was just straight tracking, to these evidence management systems now that we're using. And so many great things have happened in our unit, but also our workload has increased exponentially as well.
Yeah.
So you take the good and bad, right?
Yeah.
These are things that I enjoy in my job. Is one of my primary responsibilities is releasing evidence back to owners or suspects or whomever is coming in to pick up for that day. And kind of, I like to troubleshoot some of the more complex things like reviewing court orders, probate issues, that type of stuff. And it's really rewarding when you can release, in this case, $12,000 back to a local theater that got burglarized, and some folks, some senior citizens that while they were on vacation were burged, and all their priceless jewelry was taken. And the lady on the left here, she's a Joan Rivers impersonator. And a lot of this jewelry that she had was, specific to her persona. So it was really nice to know that we could get that stuff back to her, and and it kind of doesn't necessarily make up for all the bad, negative things that we see, but it's a good feeling.
Only in LA are you going to have a Joan Rivers impersonator come in to pick up property.
We get them all. We had the ladies from the Real Housewives of Orange County. We had one of those folks come in a few years back and stuff. So yeah, we see a variety of folks.
Yeah.
So, looks like I skipped on here to the firearms destruction. So this is just an average firearms destruction. Looks like this has been a long time ago, but it looks like about 2,500 firearms we got rid of on that particular cycle. And they just take them into this, if you see in the lower left-hand corner here, they take them into a facility and they burn them, melt them down, and create steel. In this particular event that we did that day, the steel was actually earmarked for a local prison in California. So it seems kind of funny and ironic that guns were being melted into create a prison in California. It's pretty awesome. Marijuana, what can we say about marijuana? It comes in all shapes and sizes. Up here on the left is a grow that we did a few years ago that was in the Newport Coast area, real close to Kobe Bryant's house. Not to say he would have had anything to do with it or anything, but it wasn't his area. We have some vape cartridges with some heavy duty THC in it. We even have some edibles over here on the right with their own cannabis markings in it. And then you can see some of the larger seizures that we've done over the years. And the package that I'm holding here in this picture was sent through the mail. So nobody would find that,
Of course.
So just an example of all the different types of marijuana that's coming through now. Still illegal to send marijuana through the mail, just in case anybody's looking at doing that. Here's something you don't see every day, so that's why I thought I'd throw it into this, is get a little training in at the same time. This is about a gallon bottle of GHB, the date rape drug. So it's actually about half full, but it is transdermal and you can become affected by touching it. So we want to ensure that it doesn't leak, and that's why the deputy put it inside of a plastic bag. Then that gets placed into a containment bucket. Vermiculite gets poured in, which is like a kitty litter or absorbent, just in the event that it leaks over time. And then we would seal the top of that bucket and put some evidence seals on it, and away you go, straight to the lab.
That's interesting. I can't say as if I've seen something like that where somebody used kitty litter to do something like that.
Sure. This is all what our crime lab mandates for this type of evidence that's getting looked in. So, all right, fentanyl, something we love to talk about. Not every day you see, several straight kilos of fentanyl, pure, uncut, straight fentanyl. Right now, today, we have probably over 230 pounds of fentanyl in all different types of form. We've seen it come in looking like tar heroin. We've seen it in counterfeit pills. We actually have about 17,000 lethal doses of ecstasy pills. They're counterfeit ecstasy pills that have a lethal dose of fentanyl in each pill. We believe that the person was not getting his recipe down. He put a little too much in each pill. So it's stuff like that that we've seen on a consistent basis come through our evidence stream. So be very careful, which leads me to Narcan. Everywhere in our unit, even over my shoulder here, the little red canvas container up here, We have Narcan all over the unit. So it's great to have it in your intake area, on the other side of your lockers, by your vaults, in your kit when you go to the crime lab. Narcan all the time. It even potentially changes the way you do business. If you transport your narcotics to a crime lab, you should consider having maybe 2 people, keeping it in a sealed container, such as these totes that we use to transport back and forth to the lab. We don't carry them anymore. We roll them on a cart. So we've taken a lot of considerations because of the exposures that we've had within our department.
Hey, James, do you guys,
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you have any sort of a Narcan policy, or did you just implement that and say, hey, we're going to have them, or do you have a written policy?
We do have a written policy now. I mean, a lot of this fentanyl-based protection was from our crime lab, and our crime lab really leaned on everybody. They leaned on the DA. They leaned on our sheriff. Our sheriff is a big advocate for protection, and a big advocate and knowledgeable about fentanyl.
If I remind you later, would you
Yeah.
be able to post that policy on the community page so that people got, if somebody's asking if they can have a copy of your Narcan policy if it exists?
Yeah, well, I'll just clear that. Yeah, I always have to run stuff through our
Yeah, I understand that.
public affairs. Yeah. But yeah, I'd be happy to put that. I don't think there's anything that's exceptionally confidential. And I do have, if there's agencies that are seeing fentanyl in their evidence stream and you're still doing field testing, meaning your officers are out there doing NIC testing and kits with a little bit of the powder, please do not try to get something passed through your county or your city to forego the field testing process. And I do have some memos that I'm able to share that talk about what we've done in order to forego the field testing process. So very important.
You've described yourself, I mean, you're a Narcan expert, right? I mean, you've said you're a Narcan expert. What, because the questions are rolling in on Narcan.
Sure.
I think you touched on something people want to know about it. I've got
Absolutely.
another question, but give me your background on Narcan. What makes you an expert?
Well, fentanyl specifically, and that's just because of
not Narcan. I'm sorry, I meant fentanyl expert. I'm sorry, we're talking about Narcan.
Okay. That's okay. Yeah, it goes hand in hand. I get it. Like I said, it just fell. It fell in our lap. We our coroner's office thought that we had an exceptionally high amount of heroin overdoses in 2016, 2017. And, they were never testing for fentanyl. So once they found some of the product at a death scene, they did a little deeper checking, and they realized that fentanyl is a major issue. And so a lot of agencies that think that they don't have a fentanyl problem, it's perhaps because their crime lab's not testing for that. I think now we're in a state where everybody is looking at that and they're testing for it because it's so deadly. And we want to just ensure that whatever we believe to be narcotics, we treat all the same. And that's in our packaging methods and in our storage methods and in our field testing methods as well.
Somebody's asking, did you buy your Narcan or was it donated?
I believe that our Narcan was acquired through a grant through the fire department. So every city, every county, I know that different fire agencies, and correct me anyone out there if I'm wrong, but I know California law may be a little different, but it looks like we got most of our Narcan through the fire department. But we are continuing. Narcan doesn't have a very long shelf life, and especially when they're in the patrol vehicles and so forth, that's heat sensitive, and we need to replace that like every 3 to 5 months. So we're constantly replacing the Narcan. And if folks haven't seen it before, it's just a small nasal spray. So it's a super simple class to go through. It just tells you how to identify when someone's fallen out from an exposure and how to administer the Narcan properly. There's really no way to mess it up. Once they go out, you just use the nasal spray and spray it in the nose and hope they come back and get life-saving people there as soon as possible.
I've got a message on here, James, from Diana Rose, who's in California, and says there is a grant
from San Diego.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, thank you, Diana, for speaking up. It's been a while since we acquired our Narcan, so thank you for speaking up. And if you have any more information about that you could share, that'd be a great place, is the Facebook evidence management website.
I was just about to make a plug for that because I had somebody else post a question that this is their first webinar that they've been on and they want to know, are the other ones recorded? We record all of these webinars. They all go into the Facebook community page, and inside the chat window of the GoToWebinar product, there is a link to the Facebook community page. So that's why you need to be on there, because I'm telling you, the amount of information that is given on there, and even all these webinars and everything are on that page.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for speaking up, Diana. I really appreciate it. She's a very knowledgeable property officer from San Diego State University. So thank you.
Is that can somebody tell us, is that a state or a federal grant? Oh.
Yeah, I'm assuming federal. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe Diana, can you post something on there and let me know, is that a state or a federal grant? Okay. Sorry. Continue.
Cool. All right. This is my favorite part of dealing with narcotics. So this is the destruction part of it. This is a location where we take our narcotics, and mix it in with a bunch of trash, and it gets burned. So I know there's 2 regulated EPA locations, sites throughout California that we're authorized to take this to, and that's it. So when they're down, we don't get rid of them. So, but it's an easy way to get rid of it. And there's in the video you can see at the end they're using the jaws to pick up the pallets of narcotics for destruction. Here's my evidence response vehicles. Totally kidding. But you know, Sheriff's Department has a lot of resources. So we use our Humvees for search and rescue, community programs for education for the kids. Then obviously we have several helicopters, Duke 1, Duke 2, Duke 3, and then we even have the little buggy there. A lot of stuff we acquire from the military. So just some highlights of our evidence unit. And this is it. This is the most important caveat to what we do. We're dead without these. These are our peripheral, our scanning devices. So over the years, we've had different scanning devices, from the batch file scanners to scanners that upload and then you wait for an escalation process to effect. And inevitably, you're going to have issues with those because one person may hold on to their scanner before their upload. Now, with this iOS platform, we're able to use an iPhone with a Linea scanner and even develop it a little further. But this is all what we call real-time scanning, meaning that no matter what facility we go to within the department, we connect in and we're scanning directly to our main database. We do have one scanner that has a cellular card in it that allows us to scan when we're out in the field and away from our network. So they've seemed to be working really well for us. We haven't had any major issues that I can think of. And the really cool part about it is when you're done scanning, you can use the device to rescan that location to ensure that you've moved everything out of the box. Because as we know in evidence, just because the box is empty doesn't mean that all the data transferred properly. So they're really great devices, really great. Do you have anything to add on that, Ben? I know these are.
Yeah, listen, I've got all sorts of, I mean, I would like to spend a few minutes on technology anyways, because one of the things I do love about you, James, I think one of the reasons you and I sort of connect a bit is at our cores, we're bit technology guys. So like, I love the fact that you saw a YouTube video instead of just saying, oh, that's a bunch of kids doing YouTube. You were like, how do I translate that into something that's going to be better for what I do? Absolutely. And so I do want to dig into the technology in a little bit, but do you have other things you want to dig into? And then I'm happy to come back to that.
No, I mean, I think that was my second to my last slide. Oh, we do have this one. This was just an example of the technology that we're working on right now. Everybody's required to carry their ID card at work. So it has the magnetic strip. And this is the future of just like you would with a credit card, being able to scan your ID card and then scan the other person and transfer the evidence via the peripheral device. So when that would become essential would be you go out to a large crime scene and you collect and book, say you book over 100 items, and you want to now transfer all those items from one person to the other. You could do that, or if you have your laptop up, you can do it manually. But just ideas that we're trying to foster for the future.
So one of the things I do want to share a little bit here that is very interesting about James, because first of all, I believe in the little bit of time that I have talked with him and gotten to know him, I believe I'm going to say this correctly, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. When you hear of a problem or you're in a situation where there doesn't seem to be an answer to it, you seem to go to technology as the fix to that. Is that a fair assessment of how you operate?
Well, not just me. I mean, there's 13 other people in this unit that come up with great ideas all the time, and I want to make sure that we all share the credit. But it seems like having a good working relationship with our IT folks has enabled us to create things, whatever we think that we can't fix or something we can do better. We'll have a quick team meeting just to make sure it doesn't step on someone else's toes, and then move forward with that. But I mean, so far it's been good. We've had to back out a few ideas that didn't work out, like our warrant button that we were going to implement. That didn't work out. Sometimes things just they're too complex and you can't do it. So
now you have to allow, first of all, you cannot throw out the term a warrant button and just walk away from that, because
yeah.
I, like probably a lot of other people, tell me what the idea was behind a
Well,
warrant button.
okay, so I'll probably take heat for this.
You
but
said it, not me. I didn't
yeah,
make you
I know
say
I
it.
did. I did throw it out there. But I know I love her. The idea came up, that if someone had a warrant, that you would click a button or a bullet point in the system. So that way, when you rerun the information again, you're checking to see why it didn't go last time. Maybe now, you're unchecking the button, but it didn't trigger to anything. Like if it triggered to the court system and the court said, the court eliminated that warrant because they made it whole, then that would be a great idea. Now we can run warrant button every single day and see which ones are now satisfied. But
I know we were talking technology, but when you said warrant button, I sort of was imagining the Staples, like the Staples button.
Yeah,
and
that was
I'm just
easy.
yeah, exactly. So I was imagining that.
gosh.
I didn't know what you meant by a warrant button, but now I
Yeah.
see what you're saying. It was a trigger in the system. But I think, now, again, just to elaborate a little bit, and I do know this and want to share it with everybody, Orange County Sheriff's Office is using a software product that they built internally that, so they're blessed. And I use the word blessed in the fact that when they do come up with an idea, they've got some resources that they can go to and say, how do we make this thing work? And that is a little more difficult for the general person out there.
Yeah, I mean, we have a great relationship with our IT unit, and I think they do an amazing job. And kind of some of us seeing both sides of the lockers, working on the sworn side before and the civilian side, it's always a good mix because you know how things work on both sides. So you're able to come up with something that works for both sides.
Yeah. What do you think? I'm curious, with all the technology you've dealt with, what is maybe the most important thing you've implemented that has had the biggest impact on your operation? And I know I'm speaking very broadly, but if you can think of something specific that you would say, we did this and it had a massive impact on what we did, what would that answer be?
Well, there's a couple of things. I think the mobile evidence system has really helped us because, if nothing else, it just shows the rest of the department that we follow our mission. Our mission is a support service function, and anything we can do to improve upon that mission, whether it's the booking kiosk, mobile evidence, if we go out and we teach classes on how to book and the academy, and we're trying to stay as involved and connected as possible with our deputies, our investigators, and anyone in the department that has an interest in knowing about evidence. We do a little game. We have an employees academy, and they come through, I think once every 3 or 4 months. And these are people within our department. So we've made a list of all the things that you might find in the evidence room. And as you give them a tour through there, they're required to find where they live within the evidence room. So for instance, say one person is a safekeeping bicycle, and one person might be a knife used in a homicide, or one person is anal. Well, we're not using anal swab anymore, right, Sarge? No, that's not a thing. No, we can't. We're not able to use the anal rectal swab, so we'll just call it buccal swab. But it's clever. Like people walk through the unit and they look around and they want to find out where they live. They're fascinated by all the stuff that they see. So those are the ways. A lot of times the evidence I don't say it gets a bad rap, it just gets pushed off to the side. And you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, so it's incumbent on you to stay optimistic, motivated. I think a lot of property evidence people are just amazing people that take pride and ownership in what they do every day. And I'd like to see evidence, the whole evidence industry be elevated, you know, and you can do that not just by pressing your uniform every morning before you come to work or being on time. It's more about your attitude and the way you learn and become knowledgeable, and little tricks of the trade that you can do to hopefully elevate your unit. So, like, you know, I have tons of them, some little things that we've done over the past that try and help elevate our unit. So I'd love to talk about that stuff. Sure, I'm probably off on a tangent now. So reel me back in.
Go back to some of your mobile stuff. I'm curious. When I'm thinking mentally of that picture when you guys were out at the boat and you're unloading the boat of all the marijuana and narcotics. Are you guys tagging that stuff? Are you using your mobile devices or whatever to process that evidence at the scene?
Well, there's two ways that we typically do it. One is to take the laptop out there with all the barcode and do the whole 9 yards. That takes a while because, you know, that signal is feeding somewhere else with a wireless card. So, you know, sending all that data back and forth, sometimes it takes a while. So if we know it's somewhere where we got to get out and collect stuff and get out of there, like say you're in a bad neighborhood or something like that in the middle of the night, you may not have that luxury of setting up all your mobile device. In that case, what we'll do is we'll let the investigator create the search warrant inventory or the property inventory. Then he will email that document to one of our staff who is in our downtown location. That staff member will just basically copy, cut, and paste and print out all those tags and labels. Then once they bring the items, our guys out in the field will ensure that if that list says there's 37 items, then they walk over and ensure that all 37 items are labeled 1 through 37. Once they get down to our office, then we made up the tags and the labels and make sure that that's a validation process and right of refusal. So once we take custody of that, but it allows our guys to take custody of it and bring it in, and then one of their representatives will come down with us and made up the tags and labels. But we never get on the other side, the packaging side.
Got it. Okay, good. Just want to know that. A question. So I'm going to throw some questions out here that are coming in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is so. How often do you guys purge items? I think specifically, do you have times of the year you do it? Do you do it once a month? How often do you go through a purging process?
Wowzer, that's a loaded question. Dispositions are complex. So I kind of look at it in two ways: conventional disposition and non-conventional. We are a non-conventional disposition. We are so big, and we have investigators and deputies and court liaisons all over the county. It would be a nightmare to try and coordinate every case that we want to get rid of. So we have a system we use in-house, use tools, software tools to reach out to the DA's office, reach out to the courts to garner information on those cases. And I'll go through basically an assembly line. And on those lower end cases, misdemeanors, we would work up the information, then it would be submitted to our supervisor, who would sign off the authorization to dispo, and then it would sit in a online hold for 30 days. And that gives the investigator or the deputy an opportunity to take a look every month. It's listed by his name, his or her name. They could take a look at it for up to a month and determine whether, you know, we're good with getting rid of that or not. And on the 31st day or the first of the month, then those items are going to be purged from that predisposition list.
Yeah. So one of the things I would throw out, I've never seen your evidence system. I've not been in your building. I hope someday to come to Orange County and check things out. But the fact that you have roughly 270,000 pieces of evidence in your evidence room, and you're bringing in 60,000 new pieces every year without knowing anything else, I'm fairly certain your disposition process is fairly stable, because if it was not, you would have 500, 600, 700,000.
Well, in all fairness, we do climb a little every year. It's sometimes it's an overwhelming task to to get rid of everything item for item, what comes in and what goes out. But we're trying to reduce the bleeding, if you will, within our unit. I think a lot of people, a lot of evidence units are dealing with the same issues, more and more complex legislation that you have to deal with firearms, sexual assault evidence, marijuana laws, narcotics. It just goes on and on. Even bulk property from our homeless population. it just never ends. Digital media is now a huge, this is my favorite digital media item right here. And I'll tell you why, because you don't have to store anything. It's like no server required, right?
Hey, James, the fact that you just pulled that thing out, you and I had our first like real disagreement on how to handle things. That's not the way I would do it.
I know. Well, you know, digital media is just a nemesis for evidence people. So hopefully it'll get refined, and someday it'll be as easy as just going to a web-based media file and sharing it that way.
Yeah. Hey, I had a really awesome question come in. And so I know you shared earlier that you've got 14 people in your evidence room. I don't know what 14 times 40 is, but let's just assume everybody works 40 hours a week. And that is, I mean, that's probably 500 hours a week that you guys have. I'm curious, do you have any idea how much effort every week goes into the disposition process? Is it 250 out of 500 hours, or do you have any idea roughly?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, you know, everyone in the unit plays some role in the disposition process. You really have to in order to maximize all the research that goes into it. You know, you could either gamble, you can either take a few reams of paper over to the detective bureau and try and see if you're going to get that paper back to dispo, or you can sit down and do it yourself. And we found that that's a more productive way. As far as hours in the day, that is such I almost want to say impossible question, because no 2 days are alike. You know, no 2 days. Folks that are working the front office where I am here, sometimes the phones are ringing off the hook. There's appointments lined up in our release area, and there's just not a lot of time in the day to do disposition research.
But I think the greater point is, number one, everybody is involved in the disposition process. That's
Sure.
number one. And number two, you know that people are doing dispositions. Orange County is not in that situation where you can't say, I don't even know the last time we did dispositions. And I'm sure there are a lot of people watching today where like just their daily jobs and what they do is so overwhelming. They don't do dispositions at all.
I feel for those folks. I mean, I feel fortunate and lucky that we're in a unit that we focus on evidence. That's our primary and only mission. But I realize far too often in a lot of the trainings that I've attended that folks are records, their dispatch, you know, their fleet maintenance, and on and on and on. So to be dedicated to property evidence as a sole evidence officer is really the best way to go. And then even with that, you're still overwhelmed at times.
For somebody that's watching that maybe in fact, I'm going to assume there's a lot of people watching this here today, because I think it's more people than not are in that situation where they're just so overwhelmed and they got so many jobs.
Mm-hmm.
What we tend to try to focus on is a software company, because we're not going to fix your problems with just software. Nobody, in fact, any vendor out there that tells you I'll sell you software and it'll fix every problem, they're lying to you right off the bat.
Yeah.
We want to look at a lot of different elements that go into it. We want to look at your intake process. We want to look at how you do everything you do, because ultimately what we're trying to do is squeeze, you know, ultimately squeeze time out of your day. Like, we got to find a way to reprioritize and shift things around to where you're not spending the bulk of your day bringing evidence in the evidence room, because the only way you're going to get rid of as much evidence as what you bring in is if you're spending a lot of time. I mean, it takes a significant amount of time.
Yes, I totally agree. And to do like a time estimate or a time analysis is really the only way you can. And one thing that I would point out is statistics are the key to getting what you need, whether you need another body or you need another process like a database management system to make your job a little bit more efficient and have extra time to do your dispositions. Those are the things that you have to hit your administration up with in the realm that they can understand, with the fancy charts and the graphs, and show where your time's going and how, you know, badly you need stuff.
Yeah. I would encourage everybody that's watching, if you go back to the Facebook community page and scroll through the previous webinars we did. Now, another thing to throw out on that community page, if you don't know it, I think over on the right-hand side, you can click on categories of posts. And so we categorize every post that comes in, and there's one called webinar. And if you click on that webinar link, it will take you through all the webinars we've ever done. And we've done some specific discussions on disposition. There's no one answer out there that fixes everything, but what we try to do is get a lot of information out so you can pick and choose from things and say, ah, that makes sense for what I need to do, and then we can work on that.
Sure, absolutely.
All right. So we're down to 5 minutes because listen, we could sit here and talk for another couple of hours. I believe people would hang out and ask a lot of questions. So if you've got any last second questions, throw them in. We're going to do just really quick. I'm going to ask you a question. I need a really quick answer. All right. Number one, how do you destroy your ammo?
That's a great question. We used to send all of our ammo to a company called Timberline, and they would destroy it for us. But now, you're paying by the pound. So we stopped doing that. Some of it goes to our range. And then the remainder, well, the majority of it now goes to our range. So okay. They destroy. We have a bomb squad. We have bomb squad also, and from time to time they'll stop and pick up some of it as well.
So another question: where do you destroy your weapons at? I guess this is somebody in California. I know Gerdau, Gerdau, no longer does them, and not sure who you use. So who do you use to do that?
That's the answer. That no one's doing it right now. Our one approved facility has gone out of business. So there's different recycle companies that people are taking their firearms to that are doing it. But I would be real hesitant to do that. I would almost, look at just separating the firearm out and taking pieces of it. LSC, Firearms Destruction, they are a great company. They go nationwide, and the work that they do is they'll take the firearm apart, take the non-serialized components and pay the agency for that. And the caveat is they destroy all of the remaining parts of the firearm for you, and they'll cut out the serial number and submit the serial number, the metal plate, back to you for your records for destruction.
So here's another question that came in. This specifically is related to you. How did you establish your mobile evidence response team, and do they get extra pay, or is it just part of their duty? Evidence?
Well, we're 24/7. Well, let's rephrase that. We're on call 24/7. Okay, so we have our normal hours, and no, we don't get extra pay for that. It's something we do out of pride and our dedication to our unit. And I think we all would agree that we need all the help that we could get. We really respect when we get a life without the possibility of parole conviction from our homicide guys. They'll come in and they'll let us know, hey, we just got an LWOP, and sometimes they'll bring donuts or something. They're just appreciative, and that's happened over years and years of positive, good relationships with them. And they always remind us that evidence is part of the prosecution team. That's something that evidence folks tend to forget, in their day-to-day monotony of dealing with all these trinkets of justice. So just keep that in mind. Like, those are big things, like just to have that good working rapport with your agency.
I'm curious. I'm really going to put you on the spot with this because I don't know if you meant it when you said it earlier, but you were talking about, how you take pride within your team and you try to do things to keep people, excited about what they do. I'm curious, do you have any examples of things you guys do internally? Maybe they're internal, just fun things you do. Share with us some things you do. Yes, go ahead, run with that.
They're gonna kill me. The guys are gonna kill me. So in the front office, at least, it's 4 of us guys and our office specialist who just puts up with all the shenanigans. But the reality is we keep score on each other. So no one likes to get pointed out their shortcoming if they made a mistake or whatnot. But we wound up keeping score. Everyone's got a scorecard in the unit, and it's an informal scorekeeping. But if you forgot to scan an item, or you forgot to do something that winds up popping, raising its ugly head later on down the line, you're going to get points deducted. And very rarely you actually get points added to your scorecard if you find something or you troubleshoot something that was of value. So that's one of our ways. It's just like a general camaraderie between our unit. And not to say that we don't have our arguments and there's times where we don't agree on things and we don't get along, or one area it's basically split into 3 areas: our warehouse folks, our front office, and back office. So 3 different areas of our unit. So, we're like a family. We associate more with our folks in our unit, because we're kind of in a closed environment, than we do with the rest of the general department. But it's like working in a family. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, and my understanding is you're within a year of retirement. How much longer do you have?
I had a couple more to go, but yeah, although I'm doing it. The good thing is we got some relatively new guys in here that are very motivated, and they take a lot of pride in what they do. They've already made some dramatic improvements to things that we were doing just because we always did it that way. So they came in and recognized that there's better, more efficient ways to do stuff. That's what you need sometimes, a fresh pair of eyes to come in and say, why are you guys doing it like that? Why wouldn't you put everything in order, in DR order, so it's easier to find? Just simple things like that. So I feel like I'm in good hands. If I left tomorrow or next year, I feel like our unit would be in really good hands to carry on.
That's, James, I will tell you sort of personally, one of the things I've appreciated working directly with you is what comes across to me is you have a concern not only for your department and the way things are done, but that you're trying to advance things at a larger level.
Oh, absolutely.
And you've been willing to jump in and do things like this right here to help out. This right here, you talking today, is going to help people out immensely. So I appreciate the fact that you're just willing to hop on and do this.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, Ben, when I sat on the board with KPAR Association in California, talking to so many folks throughout the state, I heard the same complaints all the time. We don't get enough training. We don't get enough, credit for what we're doing, and enough pay and advancement, career path. And so that was kind of my mission, is to help elevate our industry and create some of that in any way that I can. So I would just recommend to anyone that if you ever have the opportunity to sit on a legislative committee, even if it's an opposition legislative committee, do it. If you have an opportunity to go talk about evidence in front of your chief or your sheriff, go do it. Show what you know and represent proudly that you work in the evidence unit.
Yeah, I would, and just as we wrap this up, I just want to let everybody know, when you're on that Facebook community page, be looking for stuff on there from the Evidence Management Institute. It's a partner agency we work
Absolutely.
with. James has been directly involved with Sean Henderson in the Evidence Management Institute. And so every week on Wednesdays, I do a weekly webinar. And I don't even know when these are going to end. As long as people are showing up, I'm going to keep doing these. I'm going to keep doing them. And so I do mine on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, but Sean at the Evidence Management Institute, and James has been a part of that, they do them on Thursdays at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So when you're in that Facebook community group, be looking for posts in there and register for those webinars, because they're specifically focused on training, trying to get into the training nuts and bolts, whereas I do the webinars, the virtual evidence room tours, and sort of things that are not specifically training like that. Although I think you could argue this is training. I mean, people are learning. So
absolutely. Well, and can I just add one thing about Sean? Yes. I read his bio last year, and I said, so we got a sergeant from an agency in Texas that's teaching evidence management. What could typically sergeants, at least with our agency, they come through and promote on or retire on, and they spend maybe a total of 3 to 6 years. So what really could they know that much about evidence? I cannot begin to tell you how extremely impressed I am with Sean's knowledge of evidence management. I mean, it just blows me away that he's taken such an interest in evidence. And when we both have similar mission statements for our training management company. And when I was looking at it, I was like, it was a mirror, to help elevate our industry and provide career paths for evidence folks. So I can't say enough about that, and the relationship that we've established with EMI is great. I love it.
Okay, I have a couple of more questions I'm going to answer when we're done talking here in a minute, but what I do want to say is, for everybody that showed up, this will be the end of our webinar today, other than I have a couple of things I'm going to fill out to some specific people that ask questions. But for everybody that came, thank you. We're going to keep doing these. We'll keep looking at the Facebook community page. We'll be back next Wednesday with another one. And thank you, everybody, for showing up. I hope these are beneficial. I believe they are. People are coming in more numbers. So I'm taking these as a good thing.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us, Ben. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So for the people that hang out, for those of you that ask questions, let me go back through a couple of these questions. I don't even know, James, if you can answer this one, but somebody asked, what is the salary for an evidence custodian out in California? I'm just
Wow. That's a great question. Not enough might be a good answer. I know just based on the pay scales I've seen in the past, depending on, it's really incumbent on the cities, because you have some of the more wealthy cities that obviously pay a lot higher. But I would say the range is anywhere from $19 an hour all the way up to the top end on that would be probably 40 something dollars an hour. And then when you start getting into managers and supervisors, you're up in that range.
Excellent. All right. Somebody asked if there's any sort of attendance form or anything else for showing up to these things. Patrick Anderson asked that question. And listen, this is a free webinar we're throwing out. I don't have any participation trophies on this thing. Now, the Thursday training sessions that Sean is doing, there is a process at the end of it where you go through is quiz the right word? Is it like, am I saying it right?
Yeah, absolutely. They do a real small quiz, and then there's a certificate that's sent to you.
I hear a vacuum in the background. Is somebody running? That's all right. It's no problem, Mike. It's no problem. So anyway, so Patrick, I don't have anything for today, but if you go to the Thursday sessions, those are training, and there is a process with which you can get a certification that you were there.
Yeah, Patrick, we'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, so definitely be there for that. Somebody just asked the question: Are any you are sworn, right?
That's a really complex question, but I will say I carry a firearm on duty.
That's what the question was.
And I did go through an academy, but I wouldn't say it's a complex. We're quasi-sworn. How about that?
Yep. Okay.
All right. I know I'm evidence. I'm 110% property evidence. I just have to.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, James, I think we've answered all of our questions, and believe it or not, 85 people were still hanging out for the very end of it.
That is amazing.
All right. Everybody, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. You guys have a great day. We'll see you next Wednesday at 2 o'clock, same time.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Ben.
Thanks, James.
All righty. Take care.